back with my my favorite J&J person. Don't tell Peter that, but he'll understand. So one of my favorite questions I always tell people, I've been in this part for years, is about influencers. And I find they come in all shapes, sizes, colors, you name it. Sometimes someone says something in a split second and you never see them again, but it makes a big impact. Sometimes it's for a lifetime. Can you share with us 2 or 3 people that have influenced you in your life?
Yeah, I think I spoke to you about my parents, and my father, as I said, was a scientist. And so he inspired me to, learn to love science and to really appreciate the awe and the wonder and the challenges that it brings. My mother was a storyteller. And so, from her, I have learned the gift of storytelling and why that is a gift to the giver as well as to the receiver. And storytelling is a powerful way to learn. And so I think that that's another thing that I've been influenced by. Of course, my husband and my son influenced me a great deal. And, you can learn a lot from your children, which, I never really appreciated. Yes. But on the professional side, I would say that I've had many extraordinary people, bosses that I've worked with, who I have learned a lot from, including people like, the National Institutes of Health director and also NIAID director Tony Fauci. Also, someone like Dr. Eric Lander, who had a role in playing, in actually the Genome Project, which is the effort to map and sequence the DNA of a human being, and learned a lot from him. Had a huge influence. And now I would say Dr. Paul Stoffels, who I work very closely with, he's been one of the biggest influencers for me in my professional life. And, has taught me so many different things that, it's just incredible, the extraordinary gift of learning and from watching other people do things, and is just is I don't know, words fail me, because how I have grown over the past many years into someone who has been shaped and molded by all these influences is just it's just great. Fortunate and privileged to have had that.
Is there a story that sticks with you that your mother told?
Wow. Yes. So a couple of things. One of the things, two stories. My mother, always on my birthday, would make all these, and she made it herself, these gulab jamuns. These were like sweets that it's not easy to make. You have to deep fry these dough balls, and then you put them in syrup and all that. But she would make that, and then she would invite all the children around the neighborhood and give it to them. But in addition, we would give it to all the poor children. And so, they all were wishing me a happy birthday and hoping that I would have, they were looking forward to my birthday because so that's just a small story of how she was very giving. When she walked into a room, all the chaos stopped, and it was like, okay, somebody's here who can actually make things happen. She always told me to love every other human being like you loved yourself. She was talk about social justice. She was all about social justice, and had many friends and people from the slums who she laughed and joked with. And, so I think that's huge influence on me about fairness and, of things. Yes.
Well, that's the stories I love to hear, because they stick with us, and they're important. And,
yeah.
And we finally did get your dog's opinion.
Yes. I'm trying to get, I know he's just like a little bit upset that he's not part of this conversation, because he wants to be interviewed and has a lot to say.
Well, I'd be happy to hear his story too. Thank you for sharing those influential people. It's really important, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. Can I tell you another story?
Please.
So this is another story, and you can use it or you can cut it out, one or two stories, because one story is of one of my bosses who, as I mentioned, he headed up the Human Genome Project, one of the leaders of the Human Genome Project. So finally the genome was sequenced, and we were all going to be going to the White House for a ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
Or an announcement, actually, not a ceremony, an announcement. And the previous evening, there was an exclusive dinner of some sort where, all the muckety mucks were supposed to have dinner. And so we got off the plane, went and checked in and everything. And then he said, okay, so do you want to meet downstairs at 5? And then we can walk over to the dinner. And I said, well, enjoy the dinner, because I wasn't invited. I don't think I'm invited. I think it's only the top people who are invited. And he said, what? After all that you did? And because I had done some really important things as we got towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, everybody's done a lot. And he said, okay, so get dressed and meet me at 5, because you're coming as my guest. And so we walked in there, as and so it was just it's a story like that. And similarly, my current boss is also somebody who sort of doesn't there's no bureaucracy. He doesn't distinguish between the levels of people in a company. He deals with somebody who is sort of what you might call, because in his mind, in my mind, I mean, everybody's an equal contributor, but what you would traditionally consider, somebody on the lower end of the totem pole versus higher, he treats them all the same. And so if you take all those stories together, and if you pull in my father, who actually was somebody who was sort of ahead of his time again, and also as a scientist, challenging stereotypes, challenging traditional roles that women or men have to play, etc. So it's sort of, all of those influences, you don't realize it until you sort of one day think about it and say, okay, this is why I believe in fairness. This is why I believe in giving back. This is why I believe in challenging the status quo, and so on and such forth. And so, and I think the important thing is for us to sort of continue to mold others and the way we were molded to be, better human beings.
Yeah, and that's so well said. And that really is in the spirit of what we're doing with recognizing leaders who care, because they care about and understand that everybody contributes and everybody should be treated equally and fairly. And it's not rocket science. It's actually fulfilling to do that.
It's actually fulfilling to do that. Indeed.
Thank you. That was spectacular.
Great. Thank you.